Hello everyone, and welcome back to my channel. My name is Kayla Ray and I love to sew and to see what I can make next. This video is going to be part 2 of my Allen Walker cosplay. Here I'm going to be making his Exorcist uniform jacket, and if you don't know what that is, then it looks like this. For the jacket, I'm going to split these videos into 2 parts. This part is going to be dedicated to making the base of the jacket, and then the next one will be all the accessories that go with it. If you haven't already seen part 1, then I made a cape for his clown crown transformation, so check that out if you're interested. Please bear with me as these videos are taking a while to edit and come out, but nonetheless, I am very excited to share with you what I've made. So let's get started. I'm going to be using this black suit lining that I found for the outer jacket. I made this pattern by using a Vogue pattern number 2737 as a base and then altering it to look more like an Exorcist uniform. Going into this project, I knew I wanted a challenge, and I can definitely say that this jacket gave me every bit of a challenge as I wanted. Every single piece of this uniform has some type of bias accent, so I decided to mark that out while I was still tracing, so I can mark that on first. Honestly, this is one of my favorite parts of the process. I love seeing my pieces take shape once I cut them out the fabric, and it just makes me so much more excited to start sewing. In the case of this jacket, it was also really good that I enjoyed this part because it took forever. There were so many pieces to cut out. Every time I thought that I was almost done, I wasn't. And you can't rush through any of it because that's when the mistakes happen. But the sense of accomplishment I feel from picking up the cut file of fabric always makes it worth the slow precision. I'm also going to be cutting this fusible interfacing to attach it to the outer pieces so it gives it more sturdiness and shape. Now my interfacing, fashion fabric, and the lining are all ready to go, and now I can begin sewing. I'm going to need a lot of red bias to use for my hems and the center backs as accents. So I cut a 2-inch strip and then ironed it in half twice to get the 1/2 inch that I needed. I must have made about 10 strips here and needed about 8 more down the line, so if you make this, then more is better. Next, I thread marked my bias lines, and then I sewed that bias directly onto my jacket, starting with the center back. The reference image for the back has these lines that meet at an angle, so I decided to sew starting from each end up until I'm close to the point where they meet. And then I decided to just hand sew the rest. And once the hand sewing was done, this is what one of the back pieces looked like. Using the same steps as with the back, I sewed my bias onto my sleeve pieces. With all the immediate bias put on, I went ahead and I ironed on my inner facing, and then I started to assemble the outer shell of the jacket. After the outer jacket was assembled, this is the core and I already love it. The thread marking in the front is for more bias and pockets, and after this I still felt like it was missing something, so I decided to add some epaulettes and work from there. To make the epaulettes, I'm just sewing some bias down the middle, and then I'm sewing around the edge and leaving one side open. Then I'm going to bag it out while clipping my corners, and then I'm going to hand sew and tap stitch at the end. I popped back open my shoulder seam a couple inches to fit the epaulette between, and then I restitched it in. When making the collar, I ironed inner facing to it and then assembled it and added bias to the ends. Afterwards, I got it stitched to the outer jacket. Next, I added in my front pocket that is going to be accented by bias. The last thing to do for the front is sew on even more bias, this time surrounding the pocket and going down the jacket front. Now that the outer shell is done, I'm going to assemble the lining in exactly the same way. I'm attaching the lining and the outer side together by starting at the neckline, sewing down the front, and then across the hem, stopping just before I reach the underlap side. Adding on the last bit of lining to the jacket front, I machine stitched it down and then I slip stitched the back of it to lay it down flatter. Finishing up my hand sewing, I slip stitched my epaulettes down and stitched the sleeve lining just below the hemline. And without any further ado, here is the almost final look. It looks so good already, and this is just the jacket complete, minus all the accessories. Functional pockets, gotta love them. And that concludes part 2 of this Allen Walker cosplay. I hope you've enjoyed watching this process. If you'd like to follow along, then feel free to like and subscribe and share your thoughts about the cosplay so far. I'm so excited to see how it all comes out, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye guys!